What if the heavy weight you carry behind your eyes, that constant buzzing pressure in your chest, is not a sign that you are failing, but simply a sign that your mind is full? What if the reason your thoughts feel like a tangled knot isn't because you lack faith or strength, but because you were never designed to carry the entire world inside the small, silent space of your own head? Have you ever noticed how, when you're overwhelmed, your thoughts don't seem to move in straight lines? Instead, they circle, they loop, they repeat the same worries, the same regrets, and the same what-ifs until you feel exhausted without having moved an inch. It's a quiet kind of suffering. You might look perfectly calm on the outside, perhaps even smiling or going through the motions of your day, but inside there is a storm that never seems to break. We live in a world that asks us to consume everything and process nothing. We take in news, we take in other people's opinions, we take in the demands of our work and the needs of our families, but we rarely find a place to put it all down. We pray, and that is vital. We think, and that is natural. We worry, and that is human. But so many of us are missing the one ancient, gentle practice that bridges the gap between our spiritual lives and our physical brains. There is a way to reach into that mental fog and begin to pull the threads apart one by one until the landscape of your soul becomes clear again. It isn't a complicated system or a demanding ritual. It is a quiet dialogue between your hand, your heart, and the page. By the time we finish our time together today, you will understand why this simple act of moving a pen is one of the most profound ways to heal your mind and align your spirit. You will see how the way you handle your thoughts today determines the peace you feel tomorrow. Think for a moment about a room in a house that has become a catch-all for everything that doesn't have a place. At first, it's just a few boxes. Then it's a stack of mail. Eventually, you can't even see the floor. You know there are valuable things in that room, but you can't find them because of the clutter. This is exactly what happens to our internal world when we keep every emotion and every concern trapped inside. Our minds become cluttered rooms where peace cannot find a place to sit down. When thoughts stay trapped in the mind, they tend to grow. A small concern about a conversation you had yesterday can, in the dark of the night, grow into a mountain of anxiety. This is because the mind is a wonderful place for imagination, but a terrible place for storage. When we try to store our problems in our memory alone, we use up the very energy we need to actually solve them. This leads to what many of us feel every single day: emotional fatigue. You aren't tired because you've worked too hard. You're tired because you've been carrying the weight of 1,000 unspoken thoughts. It's like trying to hold 10 heavy grocery bags at once. You can do it for a minute, maybe two. But eventually your arms begin to shake, your muscles burn, your focus narrows until all you can think about is the pain of the weight. This is where most of us are living, in a state of constant mental strain, waiting for someone to help us put the bags down. This is where it becomes powerful. Long before we had modern terminology for mental health, the ancients understood this need for release. If you look at the great book, you see a recurring pattern of men and women who didn't just think their prayers, they expressed them, they poured them out. Think of the Psalms. We often read them as beautiful poetry, which they are, but they are also the journals of a soul. David didn't just sit in a field and think, "I'm a bit stressed today." He wrote, he cried out. He used words to describe the valley of the shadow of death and the green pastures. He named his fears. He put language to his tears. There is a specific kind of honesty in the written word that the spoken word often misses. When you write, you stop performing. You aren't trying to sound holy or composed. You are simply being honest before the one who already knows your heart, but wants you to know it too. This is where it becomes powerful. If you look closely at the life of David, particularly when he was hiding in caves, running for his life, or overwhelmed by his own mistakes, he didn't just internalize his struggle, he externalized it. He took the invisible, crushing weight of his circumstances and he turned them into ink. He turned them into physical reality. There is a profound spiritual technology at work here. By naming his enemies, naming his fears, and naming his hope, he was moving from a victim of his emotions to a witness of God's faithfulness. Most people miss this. The Psalms are not just a collection of pretty verses, they are a blueprint for emotional survival. They show us that God isn't intimidated by our darkness. In fact, he invites us to document it. When David writes, my God, why have you forsaken me?" He isn't being unfaithful. He is being profoundly honest. He is using the written word to anchor himself in reality so that his emotions don't sweep him out to sea. This kind of writing is a Selah moment, a pause in the chaos. It is a deliberate choice to stop the spinning of the mind and stand still on the page. In the tradition of Lamentations, we see the power of acknowledging grief in writing. It is an act of courage to look at a dark emotion and give it a name on a page. The author of Lamentations sat amidst the ruins of everything he knew, and he didn't look away. He didn't try to positive think his way out of the trauma. He wrote it down. By writing it down, the author was saying, "This is real, this is heavy, and I am handing it over." It was a written dialogue with the Creator. This isn't just a spiritual exercise. It is a way of aligning your inner reality with the truth. It's about taking the chaotic noise of the heart and organizing it into a conversation. Imagine your heart as a crowded, noisy marketplace. Everyone is shouting, everyone has a demand, and you can't hear your own breath. Journaling is like closing the gates to that marketplace and inviting one person in for a quiet walk. It is where the noise becomes a narrative. What happens next is subtle, but life-changing. When we look at the characters of the Bible, from Moses recording the laws to Habakkuk writing the vision so that he who reads it may run, we see that writing is a way of making the abstract concrete. It is a way of building a memorial. When you journal your struggles and your prayers, you are building a stone monument in the desert of your life. Months later, when you are in a different desert, you can look back at those pages and realize, I was here before and I survived. God met me there and he will meet me here. Journaling isn't about being a writer. It's about being a witness to your own life. It's about creating a record of where you've been and where God is meeting you in the mess. It is an act of trust, believing that your thoughts are worth observing and that your burdens are meant to be shared. It is a way of honoring the life you have been given by paying attention to it. Once we understand that this is a spiritual necessity, something incredible happens when we look at how our physical bodies respond to this practice. You see, our Creator designed our brains to respond to the physical act of expression. He didn't just give us spirits, He gave us nervous systems. He didn't just give us hearts, He gave us biology, and the two are perfectly intertwined. In neuroscience, this is called neuroplasticity. To put it in very simple terms, neuroplasticity is the brain's amazing ability to change and reorganize itself. For a long time, people believed the brain was like a piece of concrete. Once it hardened in childhood, that was it. But we now know that the brain is more like a garden. It is constantly growing, shifting, and being reshaped by what we do and what we think. Think of your brain like a garden with many paths. Every time you have a thought, you're treading a path through that garden. If you constantly think anxious thoughts, if you wake up and immediately begin to worry about the future or dwell on the past, you're wearing down a deep, muddy rut. These ruts become the path of least resistance. The next time a challenge comes, your brain doesn't have to think. It just slides right into that familiar, muddy rut of anxiety. You get stuck. You feel like you can't change, not because you lack will, but because your garden has been worn down in all the wrong places. But here's the beauty. When you pick up a pen and begin to write your thoughts down, you are actually building new paths. You are untangling the cords of your nervous system. When we keep everything inside, our brain's alarm system, the part that looks for danger, stays on high alert. This part of the brain is very ancient and very fast. Its only job is to keep you safe, but it doesn't know the difference between a lion chasing you and a stressful email. It just knows something is wrong. When you are overwhelmed and you keep it all in your head, that alarm system stays triggered. It feels like there's a fire in the building, but the alarm doesn't tell you which room the fire's in. It just screams. This is why you feel that generalized sense of dread, that tightness in your chest that you can't quite explain. Your brain is trying to protect you, but it's overwhelmed by the lack of information. Writing acts like a cooling mist. It tells the brain, I see the problem. It's right here on this paper. You don't have to scream anymore. By moving the thoughts from the abstract, invisible space of your mind onto the physical surface of a page, you are effectively cleaning your desk. You're taking the scattered papers of your life, the receipts of your pain, the letters of your worry, and you are filing them away. This slows down the frantic traffic of your mind and allows your brain to shift from a state of panic to a state of processing. It is a secret hidden in plain sight. The brain cannot be in a state of creation and a state of uncontrolled panic at the same time. When you write, you are creating. You are choosing words, you are forming letters, you are structuring sentences. To do this, your brain has to engage the higher parts of itself, the parts responsible for logic, reflection, and calm. You are essentially forcing your brain to move out of the alarm center and into the command center. This transition is where the healing begins. It's like turning on a light in a room that you thought was filled with monsters, only to realize it was just piles of laundry and old furniture. The light doesn't make the laundry disappear, but it makes it manageable. It stops the imagination from running wild. What happens next is subtle, but life-changing. You begin to notice that writing works infinitely better than just thinking. Why? Because you can't write as fast as you can think. Our thoughts are like a high-speed train, often skipping over logic and jumping straight to the worst-case scenario. Our minds can travel from "I made a mistake at work" to "I'm going to lose my job and my house" in about 3 seconds. But the hand is slow. The hand is tethered to the physical world. When you force your thoughts to travel through your arm, down to your fingers, and onto the paper, you are forcing your mind to slow down to a human pace. You are creating a speed bump for your anxiety. You cannot write a panic attack as fast as you can feel one. In that slowing down, something miraculous happens. You gain distance. This is perhaps the most profound shift of all. When a thought is in your head, it is you. If you think "I am a failure," you feel that failure in your bones. It is your identity. It is the air you breathe. But when you write "I feel like a failure" on a piece of paper, it is no longer you. It is something you are looking at. You are now the observer. You have moved from being the person drowning in the water to the person standing on the shore looking at the waves. You can look at a sentence you just wrote, something like "I am afraid I will never be enough," and you can see it for what it is, a thought, not a fact. You gain the emotional distance needed to say, "I see this feeling, but I also see the truth of God's grace that stands beside it." This distance is where your freedom lives. It is the space between the feeling and the reaction. In that space, you find the power to choose a different thought. You find the power to breathe. You find the power to remember who you actually are, beyond the noise of your current struggle. Think of it as unloading the ship. If a ship carries too much cargo for too long, it begins to sit dangerously low in the water. Every wave becomes a threat. But as you journal, you are taking the crates off the ship. You are setting them on the dock. You can see them clearly now. You can decide which ones to keep, which ones to open, and which ones to give to God. And as the ship lightens, it begins to rise. The waves that once threatened to swamp you now just rock you gently. This process of cognitive offloading is a gift from our Creator. He knew that our jars of clay could only hold so much. He knew we would need a way to release the pressure. When we journal, we are participating in a biological and spiritual rhythm of inhale and exhale. We inhale the world and we exhale our response to it onto the page. Most people miss this because they think journaling has to be profound or poetic. They think they need to have an epiphany on every page. But the neuroscience shows that even the most mundane writing, the simple act of listing what is bothering you, has a calming effect on the amygdala, the brain's fear center. Just labeling the emotion reduces its power. When you write "I am frustrated," your brain actually dampens the chemical response of frustration. It is a biological amen. This is why you often feel a sense of release after writing, even if the problem hasn't been solved yet. The problem might still be there, but your relationship to the problem has changed. You have mastered it by naming it. You have taken it out of the dark basement of your subconscious and put it in the light of your conscious mind. What's even more incredible is how this affects your sleep. When we don't process our thoughts during the day, our brain tries to do it at night. This is why you wake up at 3 a.m. with your heart racing. Your brain is trying to file all the unprocessed data from your day. But if you've already filed it, if you've already put it on the page, your brain can finally rest. It says, okay, that's handled. We can sleep now. As you continue this practice, you are literally rewiring your brain to be more resilient. You are teaching your nervous system that you are a person who can handle their emotions. You are building a history of self-reflection and spiritual honesty. Over time, those muddy ruts of anxiety begin to fill in with new growth, and the new paths of peace and clarity become the ones your mind naturally chooses to follow. This is the bridge between the ancient wisdom of the Psalms and the modern understanding of the mind. Both tell us the same thing. Do not keep it inside. Pour it out. Name it. Bring it into the light. Whether you call it lament or effective labeling, the result is the same. Peace. It is a quiet, steady transformation. You aren't just changing your habits. You are changing your inner architecture. You are creating a sanctuary within yourself where you can meet with the truth, undistracted while by the clutter. It is a journey of 1,000 small sentences, each one a step away from the noise and a step closer to the heart of the one who says, "Come to me, all who are weary and heavy laden, and I will give you rest." The rest doesn't always come from the circumstances changing. Often the rest comes from the release of the internal weight. It comes from the realization that you don't have to carry it all in your head anymore. You have a page, you have a penman who walks with you, and you have a brain that was designed by divine intent to heal through the simple, honest act of expression. So how do we actually do this? How do we take this from a concept to a habit that heals? The method is far simpler than you think, and it requires no special talent. The first rule is, let go of the need for it to be good. This is not a book for others to read. It is a space for you to breathe. Start by choosing a time that feels like a natural seam in your day. For many, this is the first 10 minutes of the morning before the world starts demanding things from you. For others, it's the last thing at night, a way to empty the trash before sleep. You don't need an hour. You only need 5 to 10 minutes of honesty. When you sit down, don't worry about where to begin. Just start with the most basic truth of the moment. You might write, "I feel tired," or "I am worried about that meeting today," or "I am grateful for the way the sun is hitting the floor." There are 4 simple things you can rotate through your writing. First, your thoughts. Just do a brain dump. Get the noise out. If you're angry, be angry on the page. If you're confused, describe the confusion. Second, your feelings. Try to name them. Instead of just saying, "I feel bad," ask yourself, is it disappointment? Is it loneliness? Is it overwhelm? Naming a feeling is the first step toward mastering it. Third, your prayers. Write to God as if He is sitting in the chair across from you. Tell Him what you're afraid to say out loud. Write down your pleas and your thank yous. And fourth, gratitude. Even on the hardest days, finding 3 small things, a good cup of coffee, a kind word, the fact that you are breathing, rewires your brain to look for the light instead of the shadows. What matters most is not the intensity of your writing, but the consistency of your presence. It's better to write 3 sentences every day than to write 10 pages once a month. This is a practice of faithfulness to your inner life. As you begin this journey, you won't feel like a different person overnight. But as the days turn into weeks, you will start to notice a transformation. It's like watching a garden grow. You can't see it happening in the moment, but one day you look out and realize everything has changed. You will find that the volume of your anxiety has been turned down. Those mental loops that used to keep you awake at 2 a.m. will start to lose their power because they have already been dealt with on the page. You will feel an emotional lightness, as if you've finally put down those heavy grocery bags. You'll start to see patterns in your life, things you never noticed when you were just thinking. You'll see how God has been answering prayers you forgot you even asked. You'll see that the things you were terrified of a month ago didn't actually break you. You become more grounded, more present, and more peaceful. This is the gift of the journal. It gives you your life back. It takes you out of the future worry and the past regret and anchors you in the present grace. You see, journaling is not just about writing. It is an act of mental release. It is a process of emotional digestion. It is a form of spiritual alignment. It is a way of saying, my soul matters enough to listen to it. It is a simple, faithful way to cooperate with how your brain was built and how your spirit was designed to communicate. You don't have to be fixed to start. You don't have to have it all figured out. You just have to be willing to pick up the pen. As we close this time together, I want you to take a deep breath. Feel the space in your lungs. Know that you were never meant to carry the weight of the world. You were meant to be a child who walks in the light, unburdened and free. I would love to hear from you in the comments. Have you ever tried putting your thoughts on paper during a hard time? What did you discover? Your story might be the very thing someone else needs to hear to feel less alone. If this conversation felt like a breath of fresh air for you, I invite you to join our community here as we continue to explore how ancient wisdom and modern understanding work together to bring us peace. And if you're wondering exactly how this process changes your physical brain on a deeper level, you might want to explore our next conversation, How Writing Your Thoughts Rewires Your Mind, Bible and Neuroscience. The page is waiting for you, and so is the peace that surpasses all understanding. Go gently into your day, knowing that you are seen, you are heard, and you are never walking alone. So how do we actually do this? How do we take this from a beautiful concept and turn it into a living, breathing habit that heals? You might be sitting there thinking that you aren't a writer or that your life isn't interesting enough to document, or perhaps you're afraid of what might come out if you actually started being honest. But the method is far simpler than you think, and it requires no special talent, no academic background, and certainly no literary skill. The first rule, and perhaps the most important one, is this: you must let go of the need for it to be good. We have been conditioned since childhood to write for an audience. We write for teachers, for bosses, or for social media followers. We are used to editing ourselves before the words even leave our minds. But this is different. This is not a book for others to read. It is a space for you to breathe. If your handwriting is messy, let it be messy. If your thoughts are fragmented and don't make sense, let them be fragmented. If you repeat the same sentence 10 times because that's all you can feel, then that is exactly what belongs on the page. There is a profound healing that happens when you realize that the paper will not judge you. The page doesn't need you to be together. It simply needs you to be present. This is where it becomes powerful. When you stop performing, you start processing. Most of us spend our entire lives wearing a mask, even when we are alone with our thoughts. We tell ourselves we shouldn't feel angry, or we shouldn't be this worried. When you journal, you give yourself permission to drop the shoulds. You create a sanctuary where the messy, unfiltered truth can finally come out into the light. And as we've discussed, once it's in the light, it loses its power to haunt you. Start by choosing a time that feels like a natural seam in your day. Think of your day like a garment. The seams are those quiet moments where one activity ends and another begins. For many, this is the first 10 minutes of the morning. This is a sacred window. Before the world starts demanding things from you, before you check your phone and let 1,000 outside voices into your head, you have a chance to set the tone for your nervous system. In neuroscience, we know that the brain is in a particularly receptive state when we first wake up. By journaling in the morning, you are essentially loading the software for your day. You are clearing out the residual fog from the night before and deciding intentionally how you want to carry yourself through the hours ahead. For others, the best seam is the last thing at night. This is a way to empty the trash before sleep. Think about all the interactions, the stresses, and the micro decisions you make in a single day. If you don't process them, you take them to bed with you. You lie there with your eyes closed, but your brain is still running tabs in the background, trying to make sense of it all. By spending 5 or 10 minutes writing at night, you are telling your brain, it's okay to let go now. We've recorded the important things. We've named the worries. You can rest. You'll often find that your sleep becomes deeper and more restorative because you've manually lowered your mental load. You don't need an hour. In fact, if you try to do an hour, you probably won't stick with it. You only need 5 to 10 minutes of honesty. It's about the quality of the connection, not the quantity of the words. Imagine you are meeting a dear friend for a quick coffee. You wouldn't feel pressured to write a novel. You just tell them how you are. Treat your journal with that same gentle intimacy. When you sit down, don't worry about where to begin. This is a common hurdle, the blank page syndrome. We feel like we need a profound opening line, but you don't. Just start with the most basic truth of the moment. You might write, "I feel tired," or "I am worried about that meeting today," or "I am grateful for the way the sun is hitting the floor." These simple, grounded statements act like an anchor. They pull you out of the swirling clouds of what if and if only, and plant your feet firmly in the now. Once you write that first honest sentence, the second one usually follows on its own. There are 4 simple things you can rotate through your writing to keep it fresh and effective. Think of these as the 4 pillars of a healthy mind. First, your thoughts. Just do a brain dump. This is the psychological equivalent of taking a heavy backpack off after a long hike. Get the noise out. If you're angry at someone, be angry on the page. Use the words you wouldn't say out loud. If you're confused about a decision, describe the confusion in all its messy detail. Don't try to solve the problem yet, just describe the problem. There is an incredible relief that comes from seeing your thoughts outside of yourself. It's like clearing the static off a radio station. Suddenly, the signal becomes clear. You realize that much of what was noisy in your head was actually just repetitive loops that didn't have anywhere to go. Now they have a home. They are on the paper. Second, your feelings. This is where we move a bit deeper. Try to name them with as much precision as you can. In the world of emotional health, we often use the phrase, "If you can name it, you can tame it." This isn't just a catchy saying, it's a biological reality. When you move from a vague sense of feeling bad to a specific realization like, "I am feeling overlooked," or "I am feeling a sense of grief for a season that ended," something shifts in your brain. You are moving the activity from the emotional, reactive part of the brain to the logical, reflective part. Naming a feeling is the first step toward mastering it. It's like turning on a flashlight in a dark basement. The shadow that looked like a monster is often just a stack of boxes. Once you see it for what it is, you can decide what to do with it. Third, your prayers. This is where your journaling becomes a sacred dialogue. Write to God as if He is sitting in the chair across from you. There is something uniquely powerful about a written prayer. It slows you down. It prevents your mind from wandering, as it often does during silent prayer. When you write your prayers, you are engaging your body, your hand, your eyes, your posture in the act of faith. Tell Him what you're afraid to say out loud. Write down your pleas and your thank yous. In neuroscience, this transition from feeling to naming and praying is the process of integrating your brain. You are bringing your emotions into conversation with your values and your faith. You aren't just venting, you are aligning. You are bringing your heart to the one who made it, and you are doing so with the deliberate focus that only writing provides. You might find yourself writing things you didn't even know you were feeling until the pen moved. This is the Holy Spirit meeting you in the honesty of the moment. And fourth, gratitude. This is the pillar that rewires your brain's search engine. Your brain has a filter called the reticular activating system. Its job is to filter out the millions of bits of information we see every day and only show us what it thinks is important. If you are constantly focused on what is wrong, your brain will optimize itself to find more things that are wrong. It becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy of gloom. But when you intentionally write down 3 things you are grateful for, you are training that filter. Even on the hardest days, the days when it feels like everything is falling apart, finding 3 small things changes the chemistry of your mind. It might be a good cup of coffee, the way a friend smiled at you, or simply the fact that you have the breath in your lungs to keep going. Over time, this rewires your brain to look for the light instead of the shadows. You begin to notice grace notes throughout your day that you would have previously missed. What matters most in this practice is not the intensity of your writing, but the consistency of your presence. We often think that for something to be life-changing, it has to be a massive mountaintop experience. But the brain doesn't change through one-time events. It changes through small, repeated actions. It's better to write 3 sentences every day than to write 10 pages once a month. This is a practice of faithfulness to your inner life. It's like brushing your teeth. You don't do it once for 3 hours and expect it to work for the year. You do it for 2 minutes, twice a day, every day. What happens next is subtle, but life-changing. As you begin this journey, you won't feel like a different person overnight. You might even feel a bit silly or frustrated for the first few days. That's normal. But as the days turn into weeks, you will start to notice a transformation. It's like watching a garden grow. You can't see the seeds breaking through the soil if you stare at them. But one day you look out and realize the entire landscape has changed. You will find that the volume of your anxiety has been turned down. Those mental loops that used to keep you awake at 2 a.m., the ones that replayed every mistake or anticipated every disaster, will start to lose their power. Why? Because they've already been dealt with on the page. Your brain no longer feels the need to scream at you because it knows you are listening. You have created a designated time and place for your worries so they don't have to spill over into every other part of your life. You will also begin to feel a sense of emotional lightness. It's a physical sensation for many, a softening in the shoulders, a release of the tension in the jaw. It's as if you've finally put down those heavy grocery bags we talked about earlier. You are no longer carrying the unprocessed weight of your life. You are moving through the world with more margin, more patience, and more clarity. One of the most beautiful parts of this transformation is that you'll start to see patterns in your life. Things you never noticed when you were just thinking. You'll look back through your journal after a few months and see that you were worried about the same things 3 months ago, and yet somehow you made it through. You'll see how God has been answering prayers you forgot you even asked. You'll see that the things you were terrified of a month ago didn't actually break you. This builds a muscle of resilience. You start to realize that you are stronger than you thought, and that you are being looked after in ways you hadn't realized. You'll notice that you become more grounded and present. When you are in a conversation with someone, you aren't half distracted by a mental to-do list because that list is already in your journal. You can actually look people in the eye. You can actually listen. You become a person who is here, rather than a person who is always somewhere else in their head. This is the gift of the journal. It gives you your life back. It takes you out of the future worry where we spend so much of our energy, and it pulls you out of the past regret where we lose so much of our peace. It anchors you in the present grace. It reminds you that today is the only day you have to live, and that there is enough strength for this day if you stop trying to carry the next 10 years at the same time. You see, journaling is not just about writing. It is a profound act of mental release. It is a process of emotional digestion, allowing you to break down the complexities of life into manageable pieces. It is a form of spiritual alignment where your human experience meets divine truth. It is a way of saying, my soul matters enough to listen to it. My life is not a series of random accidents, but a story that is being written by a master author. Take a moment to reflect. What thought, emotion, or prayer would you write down today? You're welcome to share it in the comments. Writing it, even briefly, is part of the process. It is a simple, faithful way to cooperate with how your brain was built and how your spirit was designed to communicate. Our Creator didn't just give us the ability to think, He gave us the ability to reflect. And in that reflection, we find our healing. You don't have to be fixed to start this. You don't have to have your life in order or your faith at a certain level. In fact, the best time to start is when things feel the most chaotic. You don't have to have it all figured out. You just have to be willing to pick up the pen and be honest for 5 minutes. What happens next is a quiet miracle. By moving the pen, you move the needle of your mental health. You move from being overwhelmed to being observant. You move from being a captive of your thoughts to being the steward of your mind. As we close this time together, I want you to take a deep breath, a real one. Feel the space in your lungs. Feel the weight of your body in your chair. Know that the pressure you've been feeling doesn't have to be your permanent state. You were never meant to carry the weight of the world or even the weight of your own tomorrow. You were meant to be a child who walks in the light, unburdened and free, trusting that each day has enough grace of its own. The page is waiting for you. It isn't waiting for a masterpiece. It's waiting for you. It's waiting for your fears, your hopes, your messy questions, and your small thank yous. And as you fill that page, you will find that you are also filling your heart with a peace that surpasses all understanding. A peace that doesn't necessarily come from the world changing, but from the fact that you have found a place to lay your burdens down. I would love to hear from you in the comments. Have you ever tried putting your thoughts on paper during a hard time? What did you discover? Was there a specific moment where the fog seemed to lift just by naming a feeling? Your story might be the very thing someone else needs to read today to feel a little less alone in their struggle. We are all learning how to navigate this inner world together. If this conversation felt like a breath of fresh air for you, if it gave you a sense of hope or a practical tool you can use today, I invite you to join our community here. We are dedicated to exploring the intersection of ancient biblical wisdom and the fascinating world of neuroscience, all with the goal of helping you live a life of peace and purpose. Subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss our future reflections. And if you're wondering exactly how this process changes your physical brain on an even deeper level, how the actual neurons connect when you write, you might want to explore our next conversation. How writing your thoughts rewires your mind, Bible and neuroscience. We'll dive deeper into the science of the pen-brain connection and how you can use it to overcome long-standing mental ruts. The page is waiting, the pen is in your hand, and the peace you've been searching for is much closer than you think. Go gently into your day, knowing that you are seen, you are heard, and you are never ever walking alone. Whenever you're ready to start, remember, just one honest sentence is enough to begin. Would you like me to provide a few specific journaling prompts to help you get started with your first entry? If you're ready to create space in your mind and align your thoughts with truth, subscribe to this channel. This is a place for people who want calm, clarity, and faith that works in daily life.